Okay, classmates from period 4 or 5. These notes are just going to be posted, and so you'll be able to just look at them, see what we did. There's a couple key points we actually discussed verbally that you should be aware of. So we're looking at question 51 right now. Then we'll go back, mention something on 50. And you guys get a break in a minute. 51, the question says, what is the car's speed as it returns to ground level? So we had already figured out, we knew the accelerations. We knew the initial velocities. We found that with the SOHCAHTOA, back a page in the notes. We knew the final velocity for the X and the final for the Y. This is at the end. We knew the displacement at the end because we had just figured it out in question 50. Came out to about 68 meters. And in the Y, we knew the time was, this is a 2 seconds. What is this question asking? Yeah, it says, what is the speed? Tomorrow, don't be asking me that question. Wait a minute, Mike, you can call me over and say something like, hey, wait a minute. Is this horizontal or vertical? If you have to ask that question, you know the answer, right?
Hey, play Jeopardy.
What's the answer?
What I'm going to teach.
Be quiet, man. I'm doing a lesson on here.
Oh my gosh.
So,
you're a waste of
look, there's a waste back there, man.
You're a waste of it.
So, Mike, if it doesn't say horizontal or vertical, you know for certain it's the what? Mike?
A resultant.
Come on, Mike. Yes, what Gruber said, the result. Notice here, I said speed in the question. And so if it just says speed, if you have to call me over and say which one is it, then you know it's the result.
Your kids are lame.
Boom. All right, anyway. So really what they're asking for is the resultant speed. Now, if you remember, I've had you writing the resultant column, we got a little lazy over here, as the square root of the x squared plus the y squared. That is how the resultant column is always calculated. So the way you will get this is by, put a little highlighter in, going straight across this row. X squared plus y squared equals resultant squared. Okay? That is how you will get this question. Do not use PRT6 in the resultant column. Got it? That is how you get this question. But this brings us back to a second point. There were 3 givens we mentioned in question 50 that I might very well put on the quiz tomorrow. Maybe some of them, maybe all of them. That you can just know. Here they are. Let's repeat them because they are worth repeating. There are givens that you can just know without having to do a full calculation. The first one is this. If you know the initial velocity in the x, you then automatically know the final velocity in the x because the acceleration is 0. Vix equals Vfx. Automatic. Next, if you know the initial velocity in the y, you then know the final velocity in the y at the end, as long as it comes back to ground level. You know that it will be negative the initial velocity. That you're allowed to just know. You don't have to put a whole math calculation on it. A third, if you return to ground level, you know that in the y direction, the displacement at the end is 0 meters. That is a given you are allowed to just know. Circle the start, X to finish. The shortcut from ground to ground is 0. And finally, the last of the 4 that you should just know and save you the 2-3 minutes of calculating. This problem in the very beginning said the car was launched at 35.5 meters per second. So our resultant initial speed was 35.5 meters per second. They even said at 16 degrees above the horizontal. As long as, that's a VF, as long as you come back to ground level, you are allowed to just know that the VF resultant will be 35.5 as well. You're allowed to just know that. Adriana, you got that?
Yeah, I paid attention when we did it the first time.
Good. You're allowed to just know it. And we talked about it the first time, just as a reminder. Your resultant initially was like this, was made up of 2 components. X component of 34 in this case, and a Y component of 9.8 up. Not to scale, by the way. Car follows its path. Here's the ground. It gets back to the ground. The X is still 34.1 forward. The Y is still 9.8, except this time it is downward. It's a negative 9.8. And so, if you do Pythagorean's theorem, 34 squared plus 9.8 squared is 35.5 squared. 34 squared plus negative 9.8 squared is still 35.5 squared. It's the same exact thing, except you can see with the angle, it is now 16 degrees below the horizontal, not above. Those are 4 givens that you can just know without having to separately calculate them. Efficiency matters. I put these on the quiz tomorrow. You better boom, 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 knock them out. And boom, there's 4 of them.